Hope everyone's having a good afternoon. My name's Henry Byers. I'm the head of Ocean Intelligence here with FreightWaves Sonar, and I'm joined today by Charles Odom, Director of Logistics for Halliburton. How you doing, Charles?
I'm good. Thank you for having me this afternoon.
Yeah, man, absolutely. I wanted to start just by, you have a history in logistics. I wanted to talk about a little bit about how, you got into the industry, and maybe a little bit about, what you do exactly at Halliburton.
Yeah, I started in the industry almost 20 years ago. I started off driving trucks and doing hotshot runs and bobtail deliveries for construction companies. I then went on and graduated from the University of Georgia and moved on where I started off with Forward Air, doing line haul, scheduled line haul trucking, as well as drayage. Then we moved on into, I moved into international freight forwarding and integrated project management. And then about 2013, I had an opportunity with Halliburton to go overseas. And I moved to Mozambique, where I managed international logistics for East Africa, and then moved to Gabon for a number of years, and then Ghana as well. So I spent about 7 years in Africa before coming back and taking on some of the challenges in the logistics industry throughout the world.
So you're certainly battle tested when the time came to pursue that all-encompassing director of logistics role for Halliburton. And I think that's what's most interesting about what you do is just the scope, how much you manage, how many origin destination pairs, how many countries. I think it's just truly impressive, and I think it says a lot about incorporating data and kind of where we're going to take the rest of this conversation. But I just wanted to kind of touch on just the scope and scale of the operation.
Yeah, I mean, so Halliburton runs operations in anywhere from 85 to 90 countries around the world. We're a contractor. We're an oil field services company. So we provide supplies to the oil fields across the world. We've got about 35,000 unique pairs of origin destination pairs across the world. We run a global hub and spoke cross-dock network with cross-docks in Houston, Rotterdam, Dubai, and Singapore, where we merge and transit goods from regions and geographies across the world so that we can deliver goods in time to every oil field in the world.
Super interesting, especially when you think about your Forward Air experience,
Yeah.
The LTL, the global, the hub and spoke, essentially bringing in goods into certain locations, consolidating them, sending them out to more of these more rural locations. And I think that's also an interesting part of what you do. You're talking about, moving into new markets. You guys have new projects all the time. Can you kind of describe your approach, maybe how, some of the techniques and some of the data and intel you gather when you're moving into new destinations?
Yeah, I mean, for us, we work in some of the most remote and difficult countries in the world. I kind of take an approach from the field, which is we go in and we look at the end destination. We talk to the customs brokers, we talk to the trucking companies, to the handling agents at the ports and the airports, and we determine the best routes based on starting at the end destination and working our way backwards. We could go and book freight all day long from Houston and from the cross docks around the world into destinations, but if the routes don't work and you can't get the clearances done in a compliant manner, then it's a problem.
So you're always presented with new challenges.
Yes.
I think coming in, having, who was responsible for developing the global hub and spoke network? Was that you, or was that in development prior to you coming along, or?
No, the company's 104 years old, so it's been in development for quite a long time. But there was a guy that came in the early 2000s named Dr. John Vogt, who wrote a book on global cross-docks, and he started building out more and more of that infrastructure. But it's been a work in progress for 60, 70 years. We fine-tuned it, and we've been running a very comprehensive network for quite some time.
Wow. So I'm thinking about the oil industry specifically. We obviously have what's happened over the last couple of years, but you guys had your own unique challenge in 2000. What was it? 2015.
14-15.
14-15. Where with what happened with prices and things like that. So I wanted to maybe just kind of preface maybe what happened with COVID by describing your unique challenges you faced during that time period.
Yeah, I mean, so look, the oil industry is a commodity-based industry. It went through a massive downturn. We went through what some of the trucking industry is seeing today. There was a lot of capital constraints. We focused on capital discipline, downsized, brought some operations kind of to a standstill. And it was a unique challenge, but it made everybody very, very versatile and scrappy.
And battle tested, I imagine. So then you have, heading into COVID, I think COVID, obviously a black swan event of that magnitude, would catch a lot of companies off guard. It obviously did. Did you feel like you guys were ready for that moment? Was that a moment to shine for you guys?
Yeah, absolutely. I felt like by the time COVID came around, due to the critical nature of the oil field, everybody was prepared. We were battle tested, we were ready, and really the 5 years leading up to COVID was almost like endurance training, for a heavyweight prize fight.
So in that endurance training, I imagine you guys have a significant amount of data. You talked about over 100 years. And Dr. John Boat and what he had done before you had gotten there, can you speak a little bit about the magnitude, and what you're doing, what your data strategy is, as far as, what outside or how you approach outside data sources versus internal data sources, and, what your strategy is there?
Yeah, look, we've got a great plethora of data within the organization with just, tons and tons of, or hundreds of thousands and millions of data points across the supply chain. But, for us, what we're doing is we're taking high frequency data on the logistics side, we're blending it with historical data, and we're doing analysis to really establish market trends and to be able to predict what's going to happen next. And, Sonar's been a big part of that for us.
And how many people are part of that type of team? Is that hundreds of analysts, or is that how many people are in part of that process?
Look, we run a pretty mature supply chain organization, and we've got analysts throughout the entire organization and all over the world. But for the logistics team, it's pretty lean. We run a small ship, but it's very efficient. I'll say that.
So imagine you're moving all these different modes. Are there any modes that right offhand that you're not responsible for? So you're managing every mode. And chartering aircraft, things of that sort. Have you chartered any aircraft today?
Yes.
Just to describe the scale, it's always impressive to know the scope. But when you're looking at all those different modes of transport, you're looking at a wild week for you, I imagine, is truly quite wild as far as what you guys could be battling with. Can you give some examples about just the magnitude of incorporating that data strategy, and how that kind of enables you to really meet those challenges head on, and kind of the cost savings, or just give us an example of how the magnitude of the savings that could be incurred?
Yeah, and just one great example is, we automated our dispatch in North America, and we move about 1 million truckloads a year, mainly bulk products and sand, but just solving the Postman theorem between origin and destination pairs on regional short-haul trucking. We saved $50–60 million in demurrage on a yearly basis. So that level of detail has a massive impact on our business. And it's a huge return for our investors and shareholders.
So that inevitably, AI, I think to you is very real, and you're seeing the real impacts of just, incorporating high frequency data and where that really could potentially go. Where do you see, AI's, it's quite the buzzword. Obviously, a lot of the AI stocks kind of, seeming almost like GameStop-esque at the moment, maybe a potential bubble, but you obviously see the real impact. So where do you see AI today, and the impacts that it's having? Give us some real world examples.
Yeah, I think AI has been used kind of as a suitcase for a lot of different words out there. But ultimately, everybody's been using technology to make better decisions over the last few years, and it's getting better and better. We've done a lot of automation, a lot of machine learning. We just did one recently where we automated one particular bill of lading process, and it saved like 10,000 man hours with a click of a button. Mm-hmm. That's going to become more and more regular. I do kind of see a future in the logistics industry where we see more and more of the manual entries being automated or brought in with some AI applications. But you know, it has a massive impact, and I think the entire world's got to get ready to adopt a lot of that.
Agreed. And so, you know, tiptoeing a little bit into, you know, my field specifically, ocean intelligence. You move a significant amount of ocean container freight. You know, what you're seeing right now with the ocean container carriers is really interesting. Coming off this, you know, enormous bull run, you know, the pendulum obviously swinging back. I mean, much like it has in the truckload segment. Do you see this as like a great reset for ocean carriers? And you know, what do you see as far as you know, their strategies at current moment?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think the Great Reset has also been used kind of loosely over the last year or two. It really came apparent during the COVID crisis and really the supply chain crunch of 2022. But you know, look, everyone's got to get ready for the new norm, right? And what that volume looks like across the world is going to be dependent on what the demand is at destination and who's got a surety of supply. So, you know, I think the biggest thing is we've got to get ready to stabilize the supply chains across the world, which is already ongoing.
So ocean carriers, they obviously like to plan far out in advance. When you're talking about from your suppliers, your manufacturers, and how you can leverage data to better negotiate with those guys, you know, what does that approach look like? I mean, how far in advance can you really, you know, give them an accurate prediction or a forecast? You know, what type of energy and efforts are you putting into that space?
Yeah, we're doing a lot on that. You know, I think that's one area that everyone can strive to get better is by providing better forecasts, better data. You know, we recently built a tool where we're able to look at what's coming out of our manufacturing plants around the world and actually put kilo weights to it so that we can tell up to 2 years in advance how much we've got coming down the pipeline. And, you know, we then go to our freight forwarders and to our partners around the world. We've got actual volume, not just historical. We're not just looking in the past, we're looking out the front window. And I think that has a significant impact on our ability to execute and move freight. You know, we're a high velocity organization, and you know, I actually came to Halliburton because it was the best. I'm being a vendor for all of the energy service companies. I got a chance to look under the hood, and I saw what we were working with and made a strategic decision because it was the best. And the velocity at which we operate is just unparalleled.
Yeah, the scope really is truly mind-boggling. What are some creative approaches to when you're managing these new destinations, you're managing you know, these new challenges? You know, how are you, you know, creatively? Are there some creative approaches that you have? You know, with the ocean carriers particularly, where you're trying to match up head hauls, back hauls? Are you trying to leverage, you know, what customs brokers or, you know, local agents are saying on the ground as far as who to utilize? You know, is that some of the data that you're processing as well, and how do you go about that negotiation process?
Yeah, I mean, look, we're a process-driven organization, so we take all of that data back, we interpret it, we design specific routes that work. We're working with carriers to constantly improve and to focus on executing at the highest service levels available. I mean, we're constantly moving modes of transport. You know, it's not uncommon for us to have something go from truck to air to ocean, you know, in every mode of transport across the world, and to get into some of these difficult frontier regions. And yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun.
Do you feel like the past couple of years has given you more of you know, a seat at the table, you could say, as far as, you know, what your leadership, the challenges you guys are facing? And what would your advice be, I guess, to other, you know, organizations out there or other supply chain leaders as far as, you know, what you've dealt with over the past couple of years and the importance of, you know, staying kind of with that, you know, having that seat at the table for a longer term? Can you maybe talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think that the supply chain crisis really brought an emphasis to the importance of supply chain and also to the logistics industry across the world. You know, historically, logistics personnel have been the people that have been kind of pushed in the back office and just, you know, in the back of the warehouse, routing trucks and loading trucks. And, you know, this really gave us an opportunity to kind of step up, come into the C-suite, show people what we've got and the ability that we have to help drive a business and the cost savings that we can generate. And I think it's important. I think it's everyone's responsibility, whether you're a carrier or you're, a customer, to help maintain that relevance and stay in front of the C-suite, right? I mean, we've got so much opportunity for everyone across the world to continue to improve.
Couldn't agree more. Charles, it's been a pleasure. Appreciate you joining us. And that's it for us, but thanks again.
Thank you.